Have you ever wondered, if everyone you love disappeared tomorrow, could you continue living without breaking down? Imagine this. One morning, you wake up to complete silence. No messages, no calls, no one waiting for you, no one checking in to see how you're doing. A chilling emptiness creeps in. Your heart pounds. Panic sets in. It feels like you're falling into an abyss with no safety net. But stop for a second. Why does that thought terrify you so much? It's because, deep down, you've never truly learned to live without someone else. Society has conditioned you to believe that happiness comes from relationships, from approval, from love given by others. But is that really true? If your sense of self-worth depends on external validation, then what do you actually own? Marcus Aurelius, the great Stoic emperor, once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Here's a truth you need to face. If you don't learn to be whole on your own, you will always live in fear of losing what is outside of your control. You can't dictate who stays or who leaves, but you can master yourself, and that is the ultimate freedom. Are you ready to break free? Because right now, I'm going to show you how to live with true peace, unshaken by the presence or absence of others. 1. A shocking awakening. The reality check you need. It starts young. A child clings to their mother's hand, terrified of being left alone. A teenager checks their phone every few minutes, desperate for a reply that will confirm their worth. An adult stays in a toxic relationship, unable to walk away, not because they are happy, but because they are afraid of what life would be without it. From the moment we open our eyes to the world, we are wired to seek connection, to rely on others, to measure ourselves through their eyes. But at what cost? Psychologists have found that the human brain is designed for attachment. Evolution has conditioned us to believe that survival depends on staying close to the tribe. Thousands of years ago, being abandoned meant certain death, no shelter, no food, no protection. This fear of separation is so deeply embedded in our biology that even today, the pain of rejection activates the same neural pathways in the brain as physical pain. Studies using fMRI scans have shown that when a person experiences social rejection, the brain lights up in the same areas as when they suffer from a physical injury. Your brain treats the loss of connection as a wound. But here's the truth. In the modern world, this fear is no longer a necessity. It's a trap. Society knows this, and it exploits your weakness. Everything around you is designed to keep you emotionally dependent. Social media thrives on your need to be seen, liked, and approved. Consumer culture constantly tells you that love, belonging, admiration, these things define your worth. The world whispers in your ear, you are not enough on your own, and you believe it. But what if you didn't? Epictetus, a former slave who became one of the most influential Stoic philosophers, once said in discourses, "If you wish to be free, do not wish for anything that depends on others. Otherwise, you will always be a slave." But how many people actually realize they are trapped? Most live their entire lives shackled to the illusion that happiness is something external, something that comes from being loved, being accepted, being validated. They don't see that their dependence is not a necessity, it's a choice. Think about the last time you felt anxious because someone took too long to reply, or the last time you changed your words, your opinions, or even your behavior just to fit in, or the last time you feared being alone, not because you love company, but because silence made you uncomfortable. That discomfort, that's not loneliness. That's the fear of facing yourself. There's a reason solitude feels heavy. It strips away the distractions and forces you to confront who you really are. Most people are not afraid of being alone. They are afraid of what they will find when no one is watching. But this is where true power lies. The moment you stop fearing your own company, you become untouchable. The moment you no longer need someone to complete you, to validate you, to reassure you, you become free. History is filled with people who found strength in solitude. Seneca, the Roman philosopher and statesman, was exiled by Emperor Nero, forced to live alone away from the world he once knew. But instead of falling into despair, he wrote some of his most profound works on the nature of resilience and self-sufficiency. He once said in letters to Lucilius, "A man is unhappy, though he reign the world, if he does not consider himself self-sufficient." And yet, most people still live in fear of losing others. They expect love, expect attention, expect people to stay, and when they don't, they crumble. But what if instead of expecting, you accepted? What if instead of needing, you chose to be whole? There is a man I once knew. Let's call him Alex. For years, he built his life around one relationship. She was his world, his reason, his identity. Then one day she left, and so did his sense of self. He spiraled, lost, broken, unsure of who he was without her reflection to define him. But in his darkest moment, he did something most people never do. He stopped running from solitude. He faced it, and through it, he rebuilt himself, not as half of a pair, but as a whole individual. He stopped looking for someone to fill the void, and instead filled it himself. The truth is, you do not need anyone to complete you. You have been whole all along. The world has just convinced you otherwise. And now, the real question is, are you ready to unlearn everything they taught you? Because next, I will show you exactly how to break free. 2. The key to Stoicism. Do you really need anyone to be happy? Happiness is fragile when it depends on something that can be taken away. Most people never realize this. They live their entire lives believing that fulfillment comes from others: love, friendships, approval, belonging. But what happens when those things disappear? What happens when someone you depend on walks away? Do you break, or do you remain whole? The truth is, no one can ever give you happiness. They can enhance it, they can share moments of joy with you, but real happiness is something you either build within yourself or spend a lifetime chasing, never quite able to hold on to it. I once met a man who had everything he thought he needed: a beautiful relationship, a close-knit circle of friends, a career surrounded by admiration. His identity was woven into these connections. Then, in a span of 6 months, everything unraveled. His relationship ended, his friends distanced themselves, and the job that made him feel significant suddenly wasn't there anymore. He was left staring at a version of himself he didn't recognize, lost without the roles he had played for others. This is the moment most people fear. The moment where the world strips away every external source of validation, forcing them to confront what remains. And often what remains is terrifyingly empty. Marcus Aurelius once wrote in Meditations, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been." At first glance, this seems overly simplistic, even unrealistic. But think about it. Pain, disappointment, and suffering do not come from what happens to you, but from how you interpret it, how you allow it to affect you. If someone's departure breaks you, it is not their absence that is painful. It is your attachment to the belief that you needed them to feel whole, and that belief is a choice. Imagine for a moment that someone you love deeply, someone you rely on emotionally, suddenly disappears from your life. How do you feel? Do you collapse, or do you acknowledge the pain and move forward with strength? Most people feel immediate panic at the thought of such loss, not because they will miss the person, but because they do not know how to exist without them. They have tied their sense of self to someone else, mistaking attachment for identity. But who are you when no one is there to reflect you back to yourself? This is the fear that keeps people trapped. They do not fear loneliness itself. They fear the silence that reveals how dependent they truly are. They mistake solitude for emptiness, when in reality, solitude is the foundation of true strength. The most powerful people in the world, the ones who cannot be broken, have mastered this one thing. They have learned to stand alone, not because they reject love or connection, but because they refuse to make it a condition for their happiness. Society conditions you to believe that love, validation, and belonging are essential for a meaningful life. Every movie, every song, every story reinforces the idea that without someone beside you, you are incomplete. But what if the opposite were true? What if real fulfillment comes not from finding someone, but from becoming someone who does not need to search? There is a way to test this. For one day, remove all expectations from others. Do not check your phone. Do not seek reassurance. Do not reach out hoping for someone to make you feel seen. Instead, sit with yourself. Observe how uncomfortable it feels. That discomfort is not loneliness. That is withdrawal from emotional dependence. And if you can endure it, something remarkable happens. You begin to realize that your happiness was never meant to be borrowed. It was always meant to be built. This is not about rejecting relationships or shutting yourself off from the world. It is about shifting your perspective. Love should be a gift you give and receive, not a crutch you lean on. Friendship should be a shared journey, not a source of validation. The people in your life should be valued, but they should not be needed for you to feel whole. Many people misunderstand Stoicism, thinking it promotes isolation or emotional detachment. That is far from the truth. Stoicism teaches the ultimate form of love, a love that is free, unpossessive, and unafraid of change. To truly love someone is to recognize that you do not own them and that your happiness is not tied to their presence. It is to say, I appreciate you, I enjoy you, but I do not need you to feel complete. That man I once knew, the one who lost everything, did not rebuild his life by finding someone new to fill the void. He rebuilt it by realizing there never was a void to begin with. He had simply forgotten how to stand on his own. And when he did, when he truly embraced the idea that he alone was responsible for his happiness, everything changed. Relationships became healthier, friendships became more meaningful, and he no longer feared loss because he had already found what he was looking for within himself. Ask yourself this: are you seeking happiness in others because you genuinely value them, or because you are afraid of who you are without them? If it is the latter, then your next step is clear. You do not need to abandon people. You do not need to run from love. But you do need to learn how to be at peace when it is just you and the silence. Because if you can master that, you will master everything. 3. Building inner strength. True strength isn't about appearing fearless or pretending that nothing affects you. It's about standing firm in the face of loss, change, and uncertainty. Most people live with a false sense of security, believing that the things and people around them will always be there. But Stoicism teaches a different lesson. Everything external is temporary, and only what is built within you can be truly unshakable. If you can learn to detach from what you cannot control, you will develop a foundation that no setback, no betrayal, no loss can destroy. Here are 3 powerful Stoic exercises to help you build this kind of resilience. Practice 1. Write down everything you could lose. Most people don't realize how deeply they cling to the things around them until they are forced to imagine life without them. This exercise is designed to expose those attachments and, more importantly, to help you release their power over you. Take a piece of paper and write down everything in your life that you could lose. Relationships, possessions, status, opportunities. Be brutally honest. If it can be taken away, put it on the list. Do not filter your thoughts. This is not an exercise in gratitude. It is an exercise in confronting reality. Once you have your list, go through each item and ask yourself one question. If I lost this, would I still be okay? At first, this question might terrify you. The mind resists the idea of loss, clinging desperately to the illusion of permanence. But sit with the discomfort. Look at each item and force yourself to acknowledge a hard truth. Everything external is temporary. The job you rely on, the partner you cherish, the friendships you hold dear, even your physical health, none of these are guaranteed. The more you resist this fact, the more power these things have over you. There was once a Roman general who, at the height of his success, would whisper to himself, "Memento mori," remember that you will die. This was not pessimism, it was clarity. By constantly reminding himself of his mortality, he ensured that nothing, no victory, no wealth, no title, could ever make him complacent. He was free from the illusion that anything external could define him. You must do the same. Your list is not meant to make you anxious. It is meant to liberate you. If you can make peace with the possibility of losing everything, you will no longer live in fear of it. This is where real strength begins, the ability to stand in the middle of chaos, knowing that no matter what is taken from you, you remain unbroken. Now take this practice one step further. For 1 week, detach from your dependencies. Do not reach out to friends for reassurance. Do not seek validation from social media. Do not rely on distractions to avoid silence. If you feel uneasy, if the absence of connection makes you restless, recognize that feeling for what it is. Withdrawal from emotional dependence. Let yourself experience it, and then watch as it fades. What you will discover is that you do not need as much as you think you do. The things you once thought were essential are merely comforts, not necessities. At the end of the week, return to your list. Read through it again. You may be surprised to find that some things no longer seem as terrifying to lose. This is proof that you are changing, proof that you are shifting from someone who fears loss to someone who understands that nothing truly belongs to them. This is Stoic freedom, not the absence of love or connection, but the ability to thrive with or without them. Practice 2. Training yourself to be free from praise and criticism. There was a young artist who spent years perfecting his craft. Every time he finished a painting, he would eagerly show it to others, waiting for their reactions. If they praised it, he felt proud and motivated. If they criticized it, he felt discouraged and doubted his abilities. Over time, he realized something troubling. He wasn't painting for himself anymore. His work was no longer about expressing his thoughts or emotions. It was about pleasing others, about earning their approval. And in that realization, he saw his cage. Most people live in that same cage. It's invisible, yet it controls them. It dictates their choices, their ambitions, even their emotions. They don't act based on what they believe is right. They act based on what will get them applause or what will help them avoid criticism. But what if you could be free? What if you could live your life without constantly looking over your shoulder, waiting for someone else to tell you whether you're good enough? Think about the last time someone praised you. Maybe they told you that you were talented, hardworking, or attractive. Did it make you feel valuable? Now, think about the last time someone criticized you. Maybe they doubted you, dismissed your efforts, or questioned your abilities. Did it make you feel small? If either of these reactions sound familiar, it means you're still letting other people's opinions shape your identity. That's not freedom. That's dependence. There was once an old fisherman who lived in a small village. He would go out to sea every morning, regardless of the weather. Some days he would return with a boat full of fish, and the villagers would celebrate him as a skilled fisherman. Other days he would return empty-handed, and they would shake their heads, calling him unlucky. But the fisherman never reacted. He never boasted on good days, and he never despaired on bad ones. When someone asked why, he simply said, "The ocean gives, and the ocean takes. But I remain the same." That is the mindset you must cultivate. Praise doesn't make you better. Criticism doesn't make you worse. You are not defined by what others say about you. You are defined by what you consistently do, regardless of whether anyone is watching. Here's your challenge. For 1 week, do something without telling anyone. Work hard without expecting a reward. Help someone without needing acknowledgement. Make a decision without asking for reassurance. Observe how you feel. Do you feel restless, like your effort is meaningless if no one knows about it? That is the addiction speaking. Society has trained you to believe that effort only matters if it is seen, that success is only real if it is recognized. But that is an illusion. If you can complete this challenge, something will shift inside you. The opinions of others will start to lose their grip. The noise of the world will quiet down, and in that silence, you will hear your own voice, maybe for the first time in years. Not the voice that asks, "What will they think?" but the voice that asks, "What do I want?" Once you stop seeking validation, you gain something far more valuable: clarity. You start making decisions based on your own values, not based on what will earn you approval. And that is when you become truly unshakable. But there's still one more step. It's not just words and opinions that control you. It's also comfort. If you want to be truly strong, you must learn how to embrace discomfort instead of running from it. That is where we go next. Practice 3. Turn solitude into your superpower. There is a man who walks into a restaurant alone. He sits by the window, orders his meal, and eats in silence. Around him, couples laugh, friends talk, and families share stories. He doesn't check his phone to escape the moment. He doesn't glance around to see if anyone is watching. He is just there, fully present, fully content. To most people, this image is uncomfortable. Being alone in public, without distractions, without excuses, feels unnatural. But why? Society has conditioned you to believe that solitude is a punishment, that if you are alone it must mean something is wrong, that you are unloved, unwanted, or missing out. But the greatest minds in history understood the truth. Solitude is not loneliness. It is power. The ability to be alone, to sit in silence, to enjoy your own company without needing constant stimulation is one of the most underrated superpowers in the modern world. Here is your challenge. Go somewhere alone. A cafe, a park, a new city, anywhere that forces you to be with yourself. No phone for distractions, no friends to talk to, no social media to document it. Just you and the moment. Sit in the discomfort. Observe how your mind reacts. Do you feel restless, anxious? Do you feel the need to escape, to fill the silence with something? That feeling is not loneliness. That is dependence being exposed. For most of your life, you have used people, conversations, and digital noise as a shield against yourself. But if you want to be truly strong, you must break through that shield. The goal is not to reject connection. It is to no longer need it to feel complete. True independence is not about pushing people away. It is about knowing that if everyone left, you would still be standing, unshaken. Think about the people you admire the most, the ones who walk with confidence, who move through life with purpose. What do they all have in common? They are not desperate for company. They are not constantly seeking validation. They do not rely on others to feel at peace. They stand alone, not because they have to, but because they can. That is the difference between dependence and strength. At the end of this challenge, something will shift inside you. The fear of being alone will start to fade. You will begin to enjoy your own presence, to embrace the quiet instead of running from it. And when you do choose to be around others, it will no longer come from a place of need, but from a place of abundance. You will not seek people to fill a void. You will share your time because you want to, not because you fear solitude. This is the kind of power that cannot be taken from you, the kind of strength that allows you to move through life on your own terms, the kind of freedom that makes you untouchable. But solitude is just the beginning. Once you have mastered the art of being alone, you must take it one step further. You must learn how to thrive in discomfort, to find peace even in the most difficult moments. And that is where we go next. You have now taken 3 steps toward unshakable strength. You have faced your fears of loss, freed yourself from the need for validation, and embraced solitude as a source of power. But there is still one truth you must accept, one that will determine whether you remain bound or finally become free. 4. A truth you must accept. There is a moment in life that we all experience, yet few are truly prepared for. It is the moment you realize that no matter how many people surround you, no matter how deeply you love, no matter how much you give, at the end of it all, you stand alone. Some people spend their entire lives avoiding this truth. They distract themselves with relationships, seeking comfort in the presence of others. They convince themselves that as long as they have someone by their side, they are safe from the loneliness that lurks in the silence. But reality does not work that way. People leave, people change, people die. And when that moment comes, when life strips away the illusion of permanence, what will you have left? I once met a man who had built his life around his marriage. His wife was not just his partner, she was his emotional anchor, his purpose, his identity. They had been together for over 2 decades, and in all that time, he had never once imagined a life without her. Then one day she was gone. Not because of betrayal, not because of conflict, but because life is unpredictable. A sudden illness took her away, and in an instant, everything he knew collapsed. He was not just grieving the loss of his wife, he was grieving the loss of himself. For months, he wandered through life like a ghost. He could not function, could not think, could not find meaning in anything. He had placed all of his happiness, his stability, his very reason for being in the hands of another person, and when that person was taken away, he was left with nothing, not because he had loved too deeply, but because he had never learned how to stand alone. This is the reality that Stoicism forces us to confront. You came into this world alone, and you will leave it alone. This is not meant to be a depressing thought. It is meant to be a liberating one, because once you truly accept this, you stop fearing the inevitable. You stop clinging to things that were never yours to hold on to in the first place. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers and emperors, wrote in Meditations, "Think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life. Now, take what's left and live it properly." What does this mean? It means that the past is gone and the future is uncertain. The only thing that belongs to you is this moment. The only thing you can truly control is how you live, think, and act right now. Too many people spend their lives hoping that someone else will be their constant, their foundation, their unshakable support. But no one can do that for you. Not your parents, not your partner, not your friends. Even if they stay with you for decades, even if they love you with everything they have, there will come a day when they can no longer walk beside you. And on that day, will you collapse or will you stand tall? It is time to stop running from this truth. It is time to embrace it, because once you do, everything changes. You stop wasting time fearing loss. You stop trying to control things that are beyond you. You stop needing others to define your worth. Instead, you start building something that no one can take from you, an inner strength so unbreakable that no loss, no betrayal, no departure can destroy it. This is your challenge. For the next 7 days, live as if you have no one to rely on. Do not seek comfort in conversations. Do not wait for someone to entertain you, to reassure you, to validate you. Find joy in your own presence. Make decisions without asking for approval. Face challenges without looking for support. At first, it will feel unnatural. Your mind will crave distraction. Your emotions will pull you toward the familiar safety of connection. But if you resist that urge, if you truly commit to this challenge, something incredible will happen. You will start to see that you are stronger than you thought, that the solitude you once feared is not empty, it is full of potential, that the person you are when no one is watching is not incomplete, it is the purest version of you. This is not about pushing people away. It is not about rejecting love, friendship, or connection. It is about making sure that if everything were to disappear tomorrow, you would still be whole. It is about learning how to walk through life without fear, without dependency, without the illusion that anything outside of you is permanent. Most people will hear this message and ignore it. They will return to their distractions, their attachments, their false sense of security. They will continue to build their lives on fragile foundations, hoping that nothing will ever shake them. But you have a choice. You can step into a level of freedom that few will ever experience. A freedom that comes from knowing that no matter what happens, you are enough. The question is, are you brave enough to accept it? Everything you have heard today is more than just words. It is a call to action, a challenge to break free from the illusion that you need anyone else to complete you. The world has taught you to seek happiness in relationships, validation, and approval. But Stoicism has revealed a deeper truth. True peace comes only from within. Now the question is, What will you do with this truth? Will you let it fade, returning to old habits of dependence? Or will you take the first step toward unshakable strength? This is your challenge. For the next 7 days, detach from external validation. Stop waiting for replies, for attention, for reassurance. Find joy in your own presence. Make decisions without asking for approval. Face challenges without seeking support. It will be uncomfortable, but discomfort is the price of transformation. The only way to be free is to stand alone and be okay with it. And now, I want to hear from you. What is the one thing you are most afraid of losing? And if it disappeared tomorrow, would you still be standing? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might inspire someone else to take this journey with you. If this message resonated with you, if it challenged you to see yourself in a new way, then hit the like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more lessons in Stoicism, resilience, and personal freedom. As Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." So, I leave you with this. Will you take control of your mind, or will you remain a prisoner of the world around you? The choice is yours.